Hi, everyone. Thank you, Joe, and thanks very much to our panel. I'm Jacqueline Ayers with the National Urban League Policy Institute, the policy and advocacy arm of the National Urban League. We are also a 101-year-old civil rights organization with 98 affiliates in 36 states, serving over 300 communities with direct service programs, and many of those after-school programs serving youth. We also have been really fortunate to be a member of the Campaign for High School Equity, and we've joined our colleagues here, not just working on the Plan for Success in our federal goals and priorities, but we also work really intentionally together in the states. And I hope we'll have an opportunity maybe just to give a quick highlight to that before we end. But because we have all of those resources to bear, and today we have a really special opportunity by having all of the panel of experts here assembled in one place and all of the organizations represented today, we do want to get to your questions. And so there are microphones that Elizabeth, who is in the back, has a microphone, and both Martins with the Alliance and Elizabeth with the Campaign for High School Equity. And so if you do have a question, if you'll just raise your hand, we'll have someone bring you a microphone. Martins, I think we have a first one right here.
Thank you. Oh, I'm Jerome Dances. I'm a retired mathematics professor from the University of Maryland, and the view from the universities is that the situation is not static. Students are showing up in colleges knowing considerably less arithmetic and algebra 1 than they did 10 years ago and 20 years ago, and there's a reason for it, and it's under the radar. The curriculum has changed. Arithmetic and algebra, well, arithmetic has been marginalized. And, well, my state of Maryland has an algebra test, which is the accountability, the No Child Left Behind accountability test. It's pretend algebra. Each year, the students score higher on that accountability test, and that sets them up to need remedial algebra when they get to college. So I would urge you, actually to look at the question of the curriculum, because that's having a tremendous effect.
I think Delia answered that, and what we are doing through the Campaign for High School Equity about Common Core state standards and our work in the states, so that we can actually have higher standards with regard to English language arts and mathematics. So we are doing work in that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Are there other questions? I have Elizabeth bringing you a microphone.
Hi, my name is Lillian Bigelow with Congresswoman Judy Chu. In the House, there are rumors of a upcoming bill for ESEA that gives local districts a lot more flexibility than there has been in the past. And although there aren't any particulars, in general, can you discuss how funding flexibility and even with the administration's sort of consolidation of certain programs will impact, both high school reform and communities of color?
I'd be happy to answer this one, and on behalf of the Leadership Conference, certainly we anticipate a bill like this. In the past, we have opposed these sorts of bills on the grounds that when you start allowing movement from one dedicated funding stream to another, and you don't maintain the requirements of that funding stream, particularly when those funds are targeted to low-income communities or particular populations, you do students a disservice. And so some of the proposals, as we understand them, would allow school districts to move money out of Title I, which historically has been the federal program, and it's sort of the big elephant in the room with the ESEA. It's the largest program. And the money is concentrated on the highest poverty schools, and there are requirements in ESEA to identify schools that need improvement and to do something about it. So we would never want to see those kind of requirements go away. And the other thing, for example, Title III is a dedicated funding stream for English language learners. We would not want to see school districts be able to take money out of Title III. One of the examples that was given in support of a measure like this was, well, if school district had a lot of English learners, they could take money from other programs to better serve them. And I can just tell you, in my experience at the, Office for Civil Rights, we could throw a dart at a map of the United States and land on just about any school district. And they're generally not meeting the needs of English learners. So the need is actually to put more money into those kinds of programs, both state and local and federal, and not less. So we think the safeguards that are in primarily these, big programs now, and the requirements to serve populations in need ought to stay. We haven't taken a position on, eliminating some of the smaller programs, and there's a lot of debate about, their efficiency, but there are programs that, if you look at the ESCA, that I think a lot of us would say are absolutely important programs, even small programs. For example, the provision of mental health services and counseling. I mean, we all know that that the mental health needs of students, particularly low-income students, are vastly unmet. So, programs like that are literally a lifeline for kids in school. So, we would view this, as a very dangerous road to go down, and would oppose measures like that quite vigorously.
I'd like to add something. I started out talking about the importance of the role of the federal government, and I think it's important to note that those programs are in place because of specific protections that are in the law, and that's why that funding is in place. And we have to go back to the fact that the federal government only provides about, it changes every year, I think we're at like 8% right now of what schools cost to run, and we have time over time been told through court rulings that education is a a state responsibility. What we haven't focused on is how much support states are providing for their own educational systems, and whether they are keeping up their responsibility with regard to funding an appropriate and necessary education for all students. So we're fighting over a little tiny bit.
I know that there are other organizations that want to respond to that question, so we'll let the Alliance respond, and then we'll get to other questions.
Just add quickly that I think that the two issues that you raised are definitely distinct: the consolidation versus the funding flexibility. And like Diane said, I think there's a lot of merit to looking at some sense of consolidation. What was unfortunate in that on May 25th, I think it was, when the House took up their the House Education and Workforce Committee, that bill, that wasn't a consolidation bill. That was an elimination bill. Some of those bills, some of the programs arguably could stand to be eliminated, but not all of them. And so that's one piece. The second piece is that, with flexibility is important and it's good and it's fine, but if the problem that we're facing is one of resources, then the answer lies in resources. It's not flexibility. We're trying to, put a square peg into a round hole, and for all the reasons that that have been said before, I'd just sum it up by saying I think the flexibility bill, as we've heard it will come out, really abdicates the federal responsibility in education, and that's just the backward step that we need.
Thank you, Philip. We have another question here in the center of the room.